Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome all to the day 24 of our reading from Krishna book. We are on chapter 13, The Stealing of the Boys and Calves by Brahma. Yesterday we finished our reading when we were talking that how Lord Krishna and his friends, they didn't tell anyone in the Vrindavan community about the killing of the Aghasur demon. The boys are having their pastimes on the banks of river Yamuna while having their lunch break. And there are some calves who are drinking water from the Yamuna while they're taking the lunch. And from there we proceed. On hearing this proposal from Krishna that let the calves may engage in eating the soft grasses while they are taking lunch at this spot, all the boys became very glad and said, "Certainly, let us all sit down here to take our lunch." Then they let loose the calves to eat the soft grass, sitting down on the ground and keeping Krishna in the center. They began to open their lunch boxes brought from home. Lord Krishna was seated in the center of the circle, and all the boys, they ate and constantly enjoyed seeing the Lord face to face. So they all encircled Lord Krishna and sat around him, and Krishna appeared to be the whirl of a lotus flower, and the boys surrounding him appeared to be its different petals. The boys collected flowers, leaves of flowers, and the bark of trees and placed their lunch on them, as well as in their lunch boxes. And thus they began to eat their lunch, keeping company with Krishna. While taking lunch, each boy began to manifest different kinds of relations with Krishna, and they enjoyed each other's company with joking words. While Lord Krishna was thus enjoying lunch with his friends, his flute was pushed within the belt of his cloth on his right side, and his bugle and cane were pushed in on the left-hand side of his cloth. In his left palm, he was holding a lump of food prepared with yogurt, butter, rice, and pieces of fruit salad, which could be seen through his petal-like finger joints. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who accepts the results of all great sacrifices, was laughing and joking. And enjoying the lunch with his friends in Vrindavan. And thus the scene was being observed by the demigods from heaven. As for the boys, they were simply enjoying transcendental bliss in the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At that time, the calves that were pasturing nearby entered into the deep forest, allured by new grasses, and gradually went out of sight. When the boys saw that the calves were not nearby, they became afraid for their safety, and they immediately cried out, "Krishna, Krishna is the killer of fear personified. Everyone is afraid of fear personified, but fear personified is afraid of Krishna." By crying out the word Krishna, the boys at once transcended the fearful situation. Out of his great affection, Krishna did not want his friends to give up their pleasing lunch engagement and go searching for the calves. He therefore said, "My dear friends, you need not interrupt your lunch. Go on enjoying. I am going personally to find out the calves." Thus Lord Krishna, still carrying the lump of yogurt and rice preparation in his left hand, immediately started to search out the calves in the caves and bushes. He searched in the mountain holes and in the forests, but nowhere he could find them. At the same time, when Aghasur was killed and demigods were looking on the incident with great surprise, Brahma, who was born of the lotus flower growing out of the navel of Vishnu, also came to see. He was surprised how a little boy like Krishna could act so wonderfully. Although he was informed that the little cowherd boy was a supreme personality of Godhead, he wanted to see more of the Lord's glorious pastimes, and thus he stole all the calves and cowherd boys and took them to a different place. Lord Krishna, therefore, in spite of searching for the calves, could not find them, and he even lost his boyfriends on the bank of Yamuna, where they had been taking their lunch. In the form of a cowherd boy, Lord Krishna was very little in comparison to Brahma. But because he is the supreme personality of Godhead, he could immediately understand that all the calves and boys had been stolen by Brahma. Krishna thought, Brahma has taken away all the boys and calves. How can I alone return to Vrindavan? The mothers will be aggrieved. Therefore, in order to satisfy the mothers of his friends as well as to convince Brahma of the supremacy of the personality of Godhead, he immediately expanded himself as the cowherd boys and calves. In the Vedas, it is said that the supreme personality of Godhead has already expanded himself into so many living entities by his energy. Therefore, it was not very difficult for him to expand himself again into so many boys and calves. He expanded himself to become exactly like the boys, who were of all different features and facial and bodily constructions, and who were different in their clothing and ornaments, and in their behavior and personal activities. In other words, each person, being an individual soul, has entirely different tastes, activities, and behavior. Yet Krishna exactly expanded himself into all the different positions of the individual boys. He also became the calves, who were also of different sizes, colors, activities, etc. This was possible because everything is an expansion of Krishna's energy. In the Vishnu Puran, it is said, Parasya Brahmanha Shakti, whatever we actually see in the cosmic manifestation, be it matter or the activities of the living entities, is simply an expansion of the energies of the Lord, as heat and light are the different expansions of fire. Thus, expanding himself as the boys and calves in their individual capacities and surrounded by such expansions of himself, Krishna entered the village of Vrindavan. The residents had no knowledge of what had happened. After entering the village of Vrindavan, all the calves entered their respective cowsheds and the boys went to their respective mothers' and homes. The mothers of the boys heard the vibration of their flutes before their entrance, and to receive them they came out of their homes and embraced them. And they allowed the boys to come in. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had expanded himself into such boys, this was for all the mothers of Vrindavan to feed the Supreme Personality of the Godhead with their own milk. Therefore, not only did Lord Krishna give Yashoda the chance to feed him, but this time he gave the chance to all the other elder gopis. All the boys dealt with their mothers as usual, and the mothers also, on the approach of the evening, bathed their respective children, decorated them with tilak and ornaments, and gave them necessary food after the day's labor. The cows also, who were away in the pasturing grounds, returned in the evening and called their respective calves. The calves immediately came to their mothers, and the mothers began to lick the bodies of the calves. These relations between the cows and the gopis with their calves and the boys remained unchanged. Although actually the original calves and the boys were not there, actually the cows' affection for the calves and the elder gopis' affection for the boys causelessly increased. Their affection increased naturally, even though the calves and boys were not their offspring. Although the cows and the elder gopis of Vrindavan had great affection for Krishna than for their offspring, after this incident, their affection for their offspring increased unlimitedly, exactly as it did for Krishna. For 1 year continuously, Krishna himself expanded as the cows and cowherd boys and was present in the pasturing ground. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's expansion is situated in everyone's heart as the super soul. Similarly, instead of expanding himself as the super soul, he expanded himself as a portion of calves and cowherd boys for one continuous year. One day, a few days before a year had passed, Krishna and Balaram were maintaining the calves in the forest when they saw some cows grazing on the top of Govardhan hill. The cows could see down into the valley where the calves were being taken care of by little boys. Suddenly, on sighting their calves, the cows began to run toward them. They leaped downhill and with joint front and rear legs. The cows were so melted with affection for their calves that they did not care about the rough path from the top of the Govardhan hill down to the pasturing ground. They approached the calves with their milk bags full of milk, and they raised their tails upwards. When they were coming down the hill, the milk bags were pouring milk on the ground out of it. Intense maternal affection for the calves. Although they were not their own calves, these cows had their own calves, and the calves that were grazing beneath the Govardhan hill were larger. They were not expected to drink milk directly from the milk bag, but were satisfied with the grass. Yet all the cows came immediately and began to lick their bodies, and the calves also began to suck milk from the milk bags. There appeared to be a great bondage of affection between the cows and the calves. When the cows were running down from the top of Govardhan hill, the men who were taking care of them tried to stop them. Older cows are taken care of by the men, and the calves are taken care of by the boys. And as far as possible, the calves are kept separate from the cows so that the cows do not drink all the available milk. Therefore, the men who were taking care of the cows on the top of Govardhan hill tried to stop them, but they failed. Baffled by the nature, they were feeling ashamed and angry. They were feeling unhappy, but when they came down and saw their children taking care of the calves, they all of a sudden became very affectionate toward the children. It was very astonishing. Although the men came down disappointed, baffled, and angry, as soon as they saw their children, their hearts melted with great affection. At once their anger, dissatisfaction, and unhappiness disappeared. They began to show paternal love for the children, and with great affection, they lifted them in their arms and embraced them. They began to smell their children's heads and enjoyed their company with great happiness. After embracing their children, the men took the cows back to the top of the Govardhan hill. Along the way, they began to think of the children, and affectionate tears fell from their eyes. When Balaram saw this extraordinary exchange of affection between the cows and their calves, and between the fathers and the children, when neither the calves nor the children needed so much care, he began to wonder why this extraordinary thing had happened. He was astonished to see all the residents of Vrindavan so affectionate to their own children, exactly as they had been to Krishna. Similarly, the cows had grown affectionate to their calves, as so much as to Krishna. Balaram therefore concluded that the extraordinary show of affection was something mystical, either performed by the demigods or by some powerful men. Otherwise, how would this wonderful change take place? He concluded that this mystical change must have been caused by Krishna, whom Balaram considered his worshipable personality of Godhead. He thought it was arranged by Krishna, and even I could not check its mystic power. Thus Balaram understood that all those boys and calves were only expansion of Krishna. Balaram inquired from Krishna about the actual situation. He said, "My dear Krishna, in the beginning I thought that all these calves and cowherd boys were either great sages and saintly persons or demigods, but at present it seems that they are actually your expansions. They are all of you. You yourself are playing as the calves and the boys. What is the mystery of this situation? Where have those other calves and boys gone? And why are you expanding yourself as the calves and boys? Will you kindly tell me what is the cause?" At the request of Balaram, Krishna briefly explained the whole situation, how the calves and boys had been stolen by Brahma and how Krishna was concealing the incident by expanding himself so people would not know the original cows and boys were missing. Okay, we'll carry on with our reading on Monday. So it is unfolding slowly before us how these cows, the calves of the cows and the boys were stolen by Lord Brahma, and how Krishna manifested himself into all these calves and the cowherd boys, and for the whole year they lived in their respective homes. So Krishna gave all the gopis and the other community of the Vrindavan to have their pastimes with Krishna and to serve Krishna. So if we desire, Lord gives us the chance to serve him in one or another way, because God is unlimited. So have a lovely weekend, all of you. We shall continue with our reading here again on Monday. Hare Krishna.